Hi, this is Kathy LaValle, and this is my book analysis presentation on The Shallows, What the Internet is Doing to Our Brains. So a summary of the book is basically asking the question, have our brains been acting differently as a result of the time we've been spending on the Internet? It reviews the impacts of advancements made through the ages, from the first writings on cave walls to the invention of the printing press, to electric media, radio, telephones, and TV, to the Internet. All these advancements have had impacts on our brain functioning. Carr, the author, concludes that the Internet is not corrupting our brains, but provides some clarity about the sacrifices we make by using the Internet as we do. So some of the technological creations, an example of the clock being invented, something that we take for granted every day. But prior to society's shift to working in factories, there was no need for a clock. Farmers woke up with the sun and they went out and plowed their fields, and they came in at night and went to bed. So they didn't rely on on the clock and time as much as we do today. So clocks then became commonplace in the workplace and on our wrists. So they marked the beginning of the day, breaks, lunchtime, end of the day, dinner time, things like that. So humanity's minds have been reshaped to revolve around precisely measured time. This is a cognitive support technology and has the greatest impact on changing our brains. So something that supports our thoughts, is going to have the greatest impact on changing our brains. So rewiring our brains. Scientists had assumed for a very long time that the brain development ended after adolescence, that once it was developed and everything had been learned, that our brain really didn't change. We could learn new things, but the brain didn't grow, let's say, and change. And in the 1960s, Michael Merzenich mapped the brain functioning of monkeys by interfacing electrodes into their brains. He noted which part of the brain was responsible for interpreting sensations through a certain finger. He then severed the finger's sensory nerve. What he found was, in response, the monkey's brain would physically restructure to restore the sense, even though the nerve could not heal itself. He went on to show circuits responsible for perceiving, thinking, feeling, and learning are also able to restructure for long-term cognitive changes. There was an impact of the written word as well. When Greeks formed one of the first alphabets in 750 BC, access to the written word became far more available to the population. Socrates had a concern that this written word would cripple the ability to memorize and internalize information. He said the ultimate result was that knowledge would be relegated to the printed page rather than being internalized. Reading not only enhanced societal progress, but also rewired brains on a massive scale. The visual cortex must make sense of the visual shape of letters. So as children or adults, if they have not been able to learn to read, their brains are able to process the information with less and less mental effort. Sorry for the typo there. Reading allows us to engage in deep thinking, written clarity, and private learning. So the deep thinking is, we're able to read something and then we're able to think about that and contemplate on it and maybe make some decisions, or may change our decisions and change how we think about things. Written clarity, obviously, it becomes clear for everyone when something's written down, versus the old idea of, you tell a story one person to another, and by the 10th person that story's changed. And then private learning is, just being able to read and learn on your own versus having to learn from someone else or learn from a teacher. If new technology pushes aside the benefits of books, humanity may become less contemplative, reflective, and imaginative. So the impact of the Internet. In 2008, there was a survey that results showed that around 30% of leisure time is spent on the web. The average person spends about 8.5 hours a day looking at a screen. I can tell you, I have a 23-year-old and an 18-year-old, and even myself, probably spend more than that time on on looking at a screen. My daughter is in college for graphic design, so all of her classes are using a computer. She does her homework and uses her computer. She's looking at her phone when she's not using a computer, and not, when we're not eating and we're not having family conversations and stuff. We sit and we watch the TV at night. So I would say 8.5 hours is, that's average, but I'm sure there's a lot of people, that spend a lot more time. My son as well, he's in high school, and they use Chromebooks in their classrooms, and most of the things are presented on, a screen in their classroom if they're not on their computers. And again, him with his mobile phone and playing video games, it's just mind-boggling how much time we actually do spend looking at a screen. Myself, I work on a computer all day, and the same thing. So there's been changes to the media as a result of this. So as a result of people using the internet and surfing the web the way that we do, some changes have been made to standard media. So print media reduction, many newspapers have filed for bankruptcy. There's a lot of newspapers that are closing down that were really well-read newspapers. Media has been reformatted. Books, articles, and presentations are being structured to mimic the web. They're, including things like links and URLs to more information, and they include those in books now. External media, magazines have shortened their articles and put eye-catching blurb sections to mimic, seeing something or seeing an ad on a web page. So what is the outcome? We have a diminishing sustained focus as a result of the internet. We follow links, we jump from page to page, we skim pages to find relevant information. This has left us unable to maintain focus on books, articles, or even longer blog posts. The eye movement of 6,000 kids was studied and found that they abandoned traditional reading methods. Rather than reading systematically from left to right and top to bottom, they instead scanned the page for pertinent information. So what does all this mean? Our brains are becoming rewired. We can't focus on long writings. When we do read, we may read on an e-reader. With so much information available, we are unable to internalize and commit the information to long-term memory, physically weakening the synaptic connections of long-term memory. We are shaping our thinking to interact with machines. So, we've become a society that is interacting online via email, more so than even phone calls at my office, I find. Very few phone calls. Most of the information is dealt with through email, and we're reshaping our way of thinking based on that and based on all of the advancements in technology. So thank you, and please leave any comments in the comment section online on the course. Thank you.